Hi guys! For this week's activity, we're going to be focusing on our strength and flexibility concepts from chapter 11, and we're specifically looking at developmental trends or kind of assessments, particularly in youth populations. So in your background section, I've given you some information about the different assessments that are included in a set of data you've been provided with for this week. And same thing goes for the flexibility assessment of the sit and reach test. For your instructions, the layout is fairly similar to what we had last week with our graphing procedures. So I'll give you an idea of how to make a line graph. The general procedures from there on out for the rest of your data are going to be pretty much the same from graph to graph, or if you want to look at it as assessment to assessment. So I'll do the curl up performance example for you just so you have an idea of what we're doing. We first want to calculate the averages for girls and boys in their respective assessments. The tables on the right-hand side of the spreadsheet are going to be auto-populated, so don't touch those, okay? We can calculate averages similar to how we did in our previous assessments or previous assignments. So we type equals average, and then we can highlight the data we want to average. Okay, I can then copy that function across my cells, so then I'm calculating the averages for age 11 as well as age 12. I can do the same procedures for the boys and copy their data across, and you can see based off of these calculations here, they have auto-populated into the graph that I have, or into the table that I have made for you already. So fingers crossed it should work. If you highlight all of your data, you go to Insert, we'll do a line graph with markers, and then we get something that looks kind of like that. So from here we can see our ages align appropriately. Girls are represented by the blue series, boys are represented by the red series. In order to get full points on your graph, you should have an appropriate chart title, which I've given you in the instructions, and then you should also add a primary vertical axis that has the appropriate variable that has been measured with the units of measurement. So all of that information will come kind of in the data over on the left-hand side of the spreadsheet. Okay, so you'll do the same procedures for the other strength assessments, and then similar procedures for the sit and reach flexibility assessment. So you're going to end up making a total of 4 graphs: 3 strength, 1 flexibility. Okay. I've got some grading criteria listed here, so you can use that as a checklist for the components in your graph that should be included. For the questions this week, I've got kind of similar questions for both strength and flexibility. Remember that you're using the data you've plotted in your graphs to kind of help with visualizing what the trends are that we have in this particular group of people. So you'll paste your graphs for your strength assessments in this area. And then for question number 2, consider the average performance for each of the 3 strength tests. How do performance outcomes of strength change from year to year for each test for boys and girls? Okay, so do we have from age 10 to 11, is there an increase or a decrease, and does that change from age 11 to 12? Okay. Do the 2 groups follow the typical sex differences in strength usually observed at this age range? So you'll have to reference what we've got in the lecture notes to help you answer this question. But I have, and I probably can push this down to the next page. But if you think that the data represent typical sex differences, comment on how the groups complement the expected trends. So you're basically saying what changes in strength would look like, and then any justifications for how the groups followed the trends. Okay, and then you're going to also provide at least one reason why the observed trends might be happening. So again, think of different types of constraints that could be impacting these individuals. If you don't think that the data represent typical sex differences, again, explain what the typical trends would look like, how our data don't match that trend, and then one reason why that might be happening. For question number 4, note that body weight is used for resistance in the flexed arm hang. How would an increase in fat weight impact or affect performance on these particular measurements? Would boys or girls be more likely to add fat weight over this age period? Okay, so you're just commenting on how increased fat weight might affect the results of this particular assessment. For lab activity 11.2, which is based on our flexibility assessments, you'll paste your graph below. For question number 5. For number 6, again, just commenting on what you generally observe from year to year in boys and girls in terms of if they have an increase in flexibility, a decrease in flexibility, or relatively no change. Similar to the strength assessment, do the trends that you notice in the graph represent typical sex differences that would be observed at this age? Again, kind of the breakdown of what you're typing in is what is the expected trend supposed to look like? How do your graphs match or not match that trend? And then at least one reason why that might be happening. And then the final question in either the strength or flexibility assessments, was there an individual that you thought may have skewed the results? You'll list that individual and then provide at least one idea on how that person could have changed the group mean. So remember that a mean is an average of values. Those of you who have taken stats with me before or who have taken a stats course anytime in your life, you'll remember that the mean is the average of values. So if you have an extreme low value or an extreme high value, that has a tendency to skew your data such that the actual center of your data gets shifted towards whatever that extreme score is. Okay, so do we have anybody between the strength and flexibility assessments that might have skewed results? If you don't think that any one particular individual stood out, explain how all intra-individual rates of change might affect group mean. So intra meaning changes within individuals. Okay. If you guys have any questions or need some more points of clarification, please feel free to send me an email or set up an office hours appointment.